And welcome to the Vodcast. The Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Podcast is brought to you by the Tourism and Hospitality Management Department within the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management at Temple University in Philadelphia. The purpose of this Vodcast is to give our students a look into the industries and the challenges and victories happening within our industries. I'm Mike Sheridan, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Ben Altschuler.
Thanks, Mike. So today's guest is Walter Kealeey, the travel consultant manager with Enchanting Travels, and we are going to discuss travel and tourism. So Mike, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Ben. First and foremost, Walter, welcome. We really appreciate you being part of today's podcast. As I previously mentioned, this is a new initiative at STHM, and we're really looking forward to help build content to provide additional insight and information to those in the industry. With that being said, can you provide us with a little bit of your background and how you got into your current position?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me as a part of the Vodcast, Mike and Ben. I'm really excited to be a part of this and kind of talk about my experience and background, especially what I've seen over the last year and a half here, being right in the middle of the travel and tourism industry. So my background, I was actually, looking to change careers. I wasn't really happy, long term with what I was doing, and started taking some classes at the STHM program, tourism and hospitality management. Was going back to school part-time while I was working, and really got excited about it, decided that this is what I wanted to do with my career. So I had, finished up the program there, and while I was going to be changing jobs and had just finished my master's degree, I decided, maybe I'll take a little bit of break as well and do some traveling. So with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we bought one-way tickets to Hong Kong and traveled around Southeast Asia for almost 7 months. And then as we were wrapping that trip up, did some domestic travel as well. So ended up doing a cross-country road trip, drove through Denver and said this would be a cool place to maybe put down roots for a little bit. So we ended up relocating to Denver. And, like I said, I was really, at a transition point in my life and my career, and was just applying for all different types of things. And I got a job offer to work for a software company doing sales for them. And they specifically, targeted hospitality businesses, and they kind of liked my background, not only with my degree, but I had a technology background previously as well, and they felt it was kind of a good fit for their product and their services. So was doing a sales role with them, and it was a good opportunity, but it wasn't fully what I wanted to do or what was really exciting for me. So I was still keeping my eyes open and looking for options, which is definitely something that I do recommend to everybody. I say you should apply for a job at least once a year, even if you're completely happy, because it can be good practice, but also you never know what's out there. And so I found this job posting for a company called Enchanting Travels, and the role was a travel consultant, which sounds very, very enticing and very exciting. And I mean, it still was a sales role, but it was moving, directly into the industry that I really wanted to be in, which was tourism and travel, and specifically international tourism. And so I, joined the company about 5 years ago, and we've been growing ever since. And I've been, able to move up within the company as well. And it's been a great opportunity and really, really exciting as well.
So that's awesome, Walter. And I think we talked about this when we first met, that I also love Southeast Asia. It's really one of the most incredible parts of the world. And when we first got to talk, you really talked about some of the unique aspects of Enchanting Travels. So, at Enchanting Travels, the organization really prides itself on building unique tours based on extensive knowledge of destinations. Can you tell us a little bit about how these tours work and how they're put together?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do specialize in tailor-made private travel. And so, what that means is, you'll call us up and you could say, I've never never been to Japan, or I've never been to Thailand, and I really want to go, but I don't know the best way to go about it, or I want to make sure that I don't miss out on anything. Can you help me out? And so there's kind of two ways that we do tackle this. So we do have a lot of institutional knowledge. We have a whole product team in addition to our travel consulting team that's connected with DMCs on the ground, which does help us as well. We always have local contacts that are in country, so that any information that we have is accurate and up to date. We can ensure that everything is quality tested. And so, our product team, as well as working in conjunction with those DMCs, really gives us, good knowledge that's built into our system and our software. We have our own software that we've built to generate those customized proposals. And so, for example, if I'm planning a stay for you, Ben, in Bangkok, it already has a curated list of hotels, and I can pick from a 3 or a 4 or a 5-star property, and I know what's in our system is already going to be pretty high quality. So that's kind of the institutional knowledge piece of it. But the other part is individual and personal knowledge. And so we do love people who have a travel background, but I would say that's not necessarily a requirement for the role as well. And I have been a travel consultant for certain countries that I have not had the opportunity to go and visit. And so, we do a lot of training. We share a lot of information between the teams. If someone does go on a trip and they come back and say, hey, I got to go visit a couple of hotels that are in our portfolio, let me share some pictures with you guys. If you have any questions on what that looks like, they can, share that among the team. And then, one of the benefits of the trip, we haven't had a chance to do it recently, but there are what we're called, familiarization trips or FAM trips, which are, I would say, probably the biggest perk of being in working for a tour operator or a travel agency. And so I've gotten to do a few of those as well. Since I've started with the company, I've traveled to India, I've traveled to Australia, Argentina, Chile, and the UK. So, and when you go, and it can be a bit exhausting. It's not maybe as exotic or as exciting as one would think, because when you're doing a day and you're on your 12th hotel visit of the day, they all blur into one another. But it is definitely a great perk, not only to experience that as someone who loves travel, but to then come back, and if I'm on the phone with somebody and they're asking me about a particular hotel, and I can say, I stayed there and this is why I really like it. I think that's one of the things that not only sets us apart from maybe just a typical travel agency that is really just kind of reselling someone else's experiences. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. But I think it also gets people really excited. There is a real desire for that firsthand knowledge. And if you look up a review on TripAdvisor, you don't know who wrote that, or if they actually went, or when they went, or anything. And so that personal experience and knowledge is really valuable.
Awesome.
Well, that's really cool. And let me start by saying I feel your pain for having to visit Australia and India and Argentina and all these places,
Shedding a tear.
But as the odd man out who has never been to Asia, I feel as if I'll be using Enchanting Travels for my next excursion. I actually wanted to take a step back. You talked about offering some advice. Hey, even if you're not looking for a job, I recommend applying once a year so what's out there and you're prepared. In the classroom, we're trying to offer as much educational experience and advice as possible as well. One of the elements that we typically talk about, and it certainly has come into practice over the past 18 months, is this idea of adaptability, especially when things like COVID occur. Can you talk about some of the ways that your company pivoted during the pandemic to ensure survival?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a great question, Mike. And I would say if we didn't pivot immediately when this was declared a global pandemic, we would have been in a lot of trouble. And so, when that declaration did come out, the first thing that we did was we had over 100 different trips taking taking place at that time. And so the first thing that we did was, how do we get everyone home? And we had people on, all different continents, all around the globe, in, sometimes remote parts of the country. And so getting in touch with them and saying, we are going to, get you on a plane that, we're going to book a flight for you to get home, was really our number one priority. And we did successfully repatriate everybody. One person did get stuck in Vietnam for, I think, about 2 weeks, but we did get them home as well. So that was really number one priority: take care of people who are on the ground. And then, shortly after that, it was the people who were scheduled to go in the next 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, our phone was ringing almost nonstop with people. Some people saying, I'm supposed to go in a few days. We even called a guest who was literally on a plane, and we said, you have to get off the plane. He was about to start his trip, and we said, you can't get into the country. You need to get off the plane. Otherwise, they're just going to turn you back around when you get there. So, I mean, like you said, Mike, being adaptable and responsive was really, really important for us. And then, shortly after that, we're really just trying to get people to not outright cancel their plans, but to delay them. Not only was it important to us as a company, but you think about, mom and pop, owners of a boutique hotel, or maybe a tour guide, who lives in, India or Argentina, who maybe that's the only, income that they have as a family. And so, it was really hard for everybody in the industry, for essentially the business to stop overnight. But I think one of the things that made it a little bit easier was knowing that, oh, okay, there are things, on the books, in the future. So a lot of people, what we really encourage people to do, and what's really helpful to us, is just say, keep your plans. It's a wonderful trip that you were really looking forward to. Let's push that out by 12 months or 18 months, something like that. So I would say those were what we were doing really within the first few weeks right after COVID. And then we took another hard look at ourselves and said, we've specialized for a long time in long haul international travel, maybe to countries that are still developing, which is really exciting, but is probably going to be the segment that takes the longest to recover. And so we said, could we offer some short haul travel, which we haven't done before, or could we offer domestic travel, which we had never done? It was, I would say at the time, it was, we had thought, well, this wouldn't really appeal to our specific, guests or our demographic, but COVID really did change everything. So somebody who a few years ago would have never thought to use a tour operator for a domestic trip, with a rental car where they're going to some national parks, all of a sudden found so much value in having someone have that organized and having a, emergency contact that they could call 24/7, either if something did go wrong, or just they had a question. Hey, I don't want to eat in a restaurant in summer of 2020. Can you give me a list of restaurants in town that have outdoor seating? And just knowing that they had someone that they could rely on, almost traveling with a safety net, I think gave a lot more value to trips that we plan.
That's very interesting, and you can tell how it definitely changed the consumer behavior with regard to travel and tourism.
And it's interesting too, because I think one of the things we are talking to our students a lot about right now is how the travel right now has become very localized. And so I think, Walter, what you're saying kind of speaks to that. But for our next question is kind of like a 2.5-part question. So, first off, we talked about some of the immediate challenges that the pandemic brought, to the travel industry. But over the past 18 months, what do you think have been, going past that initial stage, what do you think have been some of the biggest challenges? Are there any that stand out in particular? And then oddly enough, I was reading an article, I think in Skift, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and they actually said that in this post-pandemic world that we're hopefully getting towards, there has been an increased interest in travel agents. So I'm just curious what your take on that is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I would say the biggest challenge for me, once we got out of those initial hurdles and challenges, was really just the uncertainty. People want to know, if I book this trip with you, will it be possible? Or if I travel, we're even having people ask, way in advance. If I go to, Australia in late 2022, will I have to wear a mask in restaurants or on planes? And as much as I would love to have the answer to questions like that, we just don't. And so I think, uncertainty on, what requirements will be like, what testing will be like, even when certain countries will open back up for tourism, we get questions like that every day. When will this country open back up? And again, I don't know. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges. The way that we've kind of tried to manage that is just with increased flexibility. And I think that that's probably here to stay with, the tourism industry. I think, non-refundable rates will still be around, but you're going to get a much better deal with those. And I think people will be more willing to pay a little bit extra to have things be, fully, refundable or more flexible. And that's, I think, one of the things that we've done over the last year and a half that has had people, booking international travel with us in 2020 and 2021, giving them a lot of flexibility, making sure that they know they're not locked into something that they're not fully comfortable with, has been, one of the other big things that we've rolled out and kind of helped us, manage this challenging time. Ben, to answer the second part of your question on, is there a renewed interest in, travel agents and tour operators and travel consultants and people who are, gonna really arrange everything for you? I would say absolutely. I mean, there's still going to be people who are interested in self-organizing, but I think now in this, post-COVID world that we are moving towards, I think people are more aware of the risks of putting everything on your own. And other thing that has changed is we don't really know, the information that's out there, is that up to date? I could find something that says, this hotel is great and I loved my meal there, but then you show up and I mean, maybe the restaurant is closed, or maybe the hotel is not even operating because things have changed because of COVID. And so with the rapidly changing information, I think that's one of the other really big benefits that you'll get on working with a travel agent or a tour operator like ours, that you're kind of outsourcing all of that worry and information and constant need to double check everything by just knowing that a professional is taking care of it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me. And it's everything just seems so uncertain. So I think, relying upon the experts, I mean, I think it's a great point and it makes a ton of sense to me.
It's interesting. The words that you're using, I mean, are the students don't get it. They think some of our lectures are boring, but we're talking about, the hierarchy of needs right here. We have to make sure that those ideas of uncertainty are covered, and Hofstede's dimensions with the risk avoidance and things like that. So I can certainly understand why the renewed interest in travel agents is there. So
yeah, before you move on, Mike, if we're talking about the academics, one of my favorite things that I learned throughout my whole time at STHM was the dissatisfaction paradox, which I'm preaching a lot, to even my colleagues, which is especially, even before in travel it was true, but especially now, things are going to go wrong. They will not go as expected. It might be out of your control. Flights could get canceled, that type of thing. And it's all about how you recover from that service failure. I think that is so huge and something that we really focus on. If a guest flight gets delayed or canceled, we might comp their dinner that night, even though it wasn't because of our fault. But overall, you are entrusting us to take care of your journey from the moment you set foot in a foreign country until you are on that plane to go back home. And so that's something that I think is also really important, is just, things are not going to go exactly the way you wanted, but how do you recover from that? And can you make it up and almost, go a bit even further and delight somebody to get them back on track and make them, enjoy everything moving forward.
And it's really refreshing that your organization recognizes that there's, as you said, some things are beyond your control, but you're willing to go above and beyond to make it a pleasant, enjoyable experience for the tourists. I'm sure they really do appreciate it. So let's try to get away from the negative a little bit. Let's get away from that level of uncertainty. So the past 18 plus months now, it's been a challenge for everybody. But what can you say, if anything, have been some of your greatest victories?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is what I kind of already spoke to, which was, just preventing all of those mass cancellations, getting people to agree to say, I do still trust you. I do still want to travel with you. I will keep those plans. Whether that's for fixed dates or just saying, I don't know when, but I will get back in touch with you and I will, still book this trip, and I'm looking forward to that. So I think that has been one of the big victories for us. The other thing is, when we weren't planning as many trips and, getting as many incoming calls, we really kind of sat down and worked on expanding our portfolio as well. So we probably added, throughout the year of 2020, about 20 new countries to our portfolio. And it was something that was always in our plan, but it was probably going to take about 3 years under normal circumstances. And we said, well, if we have downtime, can we really kind of supercharge this, big, admin burden and all of this behind the scenes work, especially for some of the countries that are a massive undertaking, planning travel to the UK or to France. These are really popular markets, but they're ones that we were just starting to break into, and we really doubled down on that. So I think, when travel does bounce back, we're going to be much better positioned, because right now we're planning travel to over 70 different countries. And even when we've been continually adding to the portfolio even since I started. It's about doubled since I started about 5 years ago. So I would say those are, two of the big victories that I've seen, which is getting people to still say that they trust us, keep their plans with us, and then expanding the options that we have for people who are going to travel with us in the future.
I think that element of expansion is crucial. I mean, it's the difference between not only surviving but potentially thriving in something such as COVID.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a shame because there are, some other tour operators that just went completely out of business, or I know of some of our competitors who laid off 90% of their staff, and the only other people who were around were literally people answering the phone and saying, yes, your plans are canceled. Sorry, we cannot refund you. When you do want to travel again, give us a call. And it was a bold call for us. I mean, we did still have some cuts, but we really tried to retain as much as possible so that we could, not have to build back up from almost zero. And I think that we're going to see that with other companies as well. Some really went into hibernation and are going to be a little bit slow to recapture the bounce back, which is inevitable. It's coming. There's going to be a big surge, and I think, we've seen it in other industries. We talk about, cars are sold out right now because production stopped. And, I think we're going to see the same thing with travel. It's the demand is going to bounce back so strong and so quickly that not everybody is going to be ready to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I know, speaking personally, I'm just dying to get out and do stuff, and it's been more local and traveling around the area. But yeah, and I think that trust piece is huge as well. I think just keeping people believing in you is a great thing. So let's hit the last question. It's a big one. Based upon all your knowledge, what do you think is next for the industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. It kind of goes back to what I said before. I wish I could tell you exactly, when the country is going to open. If I had that crystal ball and knew what was next for the industry, I would love to have that ability. But we already touched on it previously, and flexibility. I think it's here to stay. People really appreciate being able to plan travel, but not able to cancel or change their plans. I think that is here to stay. So I think not only is that next, I think that's already here, and we're going to see that stick around for quite some time. I mean, even United Airlines announced sometime in the last year that they've just been doing away with change fees, which they made over $1 billion a year on. So there is a bit of a calculated risk to say we're going to give more people more flexibility, and that's going to make up that lost revenue. So I think that's here to stay. I think technology will continue to be a really important part of the industry. You could have the most charming, beautiful, amazing property, in a remote part of, let's say, Greece, just for example. But if people can't book that online, and if they can't look it up and find reviews, you probably, aren't gonna do much business. And so I think, staying connected and being digitally available is going to be really important for properties, especially as I think there's going to be entrepreneurs as well, people who see an opportunity and want to open up, new places and fill some of the void that's there, but they're going to have to be really, really connected. And similar to technology, I think this on-demand model is going to be really important. People are used to pulling up their phone and calling an Uber and have it right there. And Airbnb has just started to step into that with their Airbnb experiences. There's another small website I like. It's called Travel by Local, and you can go and punch in a town or a destination anywhere on the globe, and people who are signed up say, yeah, I will be your personal tour guide for my city, for the day, the evening. And not only that on demand, but that really personalized approach. I did get to experience that while I was in Australia, in Melbourne. And a guy, he met us at the airport and he picked us up and said, all right, I'm going to take you to the hotel and then tell me what you like while we're driving to your hotel. And my friend said, oh, I really like art. And I said, I love good food and drink. And so this tour guide took us to his favorite rooftop bar, got us his favorite dishes that are local to the area, and then took us to an art gallery opening. And it was this was years ago, and I still vividly remember the experience. So that type of personalized, tailor-made an experience that is built just for you, I think is going to be even more important as we go forward. And like I said, what's next, Ben? That demand is coming back.
Yeah.
The next is properties that are selling out much faster and much more in advance than people are used to. And so, I read about a trend recently called trip stacking, where people are booking multiple trips at once, and sometimes even for the same dates. And they're saying, I am going to go somewhere in January of 2022. I don't know which of these trips is going to work, but I want to have a backup plan ready to go. And so I think that's something that we're going to see as well. People are going to start booking a lot. There is a lot of pent up demand. I'm really excited to see what it looks like when places start to open up again.
And I agree that a lot of people just have this built up desire to travel. And once we feel more comfortable expanding and we're going to start hitting those horizons, I do hope one of the trends that seems to go away is the idea of labor shortage, because I know that's a huge concern right now.
Yeah, and I think, maybe people traveling so quickly is maybe going to go away as well. Some people who are just flying to different airports just to get a stamp, go out and do a city tour. I think that might not be as appealing to people going forward in this trend of slow travel, and maybe adding an extra day and spending a little bit more time, especially with COVID. People are wanting to be in not cooped up in airports or in busy cities all the time, and adding an extra day or two, or maybe a destination that wasn't originally on your itinerary. I think that's something that we're going to see take off. These maybe destinations that were considered secondary of interest to tourism might start to be popular more than they were before COVID.
It's really interesting. Like you said, we don't have that crystal ball, but it's definitely, we have an idea what's out there.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time here, so I would like to thank you, Walter, for joining us today. Walter Kealeey, Travel Consulting Manager with Enchanting Travels. Really appreciate your time and effort today. Thank you all for joining us on the Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Vodcast, brought to you by the Tourism and Hospitality Management Department within the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management at Temple University in Philadelphia. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.